Hi, Mark Hotchkiss here. There's a famous question that I believe can be answered now. What is the purpose of life? Well, let's start at the beginning. The Bible tells us of three archangels: Michael, Gabriel, and Lucifer. Michael is the angel of war. He was always sent by God to fight against the enemies of his people. And in Daniel 12:1, it says that Michael is the great prince who protects your people. In Revelations 12:7, Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. It tells us that Satan is the dragon. And verse 3 tells us that the dragon's tail dragged a third of the stars or angels from heaven and were cast to earth. Now there's other scripture passages that tell us about Michael, Gabriel, and Lucifer. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll only mention a couple. So let's look at the second archangel, Gabriel. Now he is the messenger angel. He was always giving messages to God's people. For example, in Daniel 9:21-22, Gabriel instructed Daniel. He tells him, "Daniel, I have now come to give you insight and understanding." And in Luke 1:19, Gabriel says to Zacharias, "I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you this good news." And the third archangel, Lucifer, well, he's the praise and worship angel that was cast out of heaven. In Isaiah 14:12-15, it says, "How you have fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of the dawn. You've been cast down to the earth, you who once laid low the nations. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly, on the utmost heights of the sacred mountain. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. But you are brought down to the grave, to the depths of the pit." Now, Lucifer and his host of angels were called the morning stars in this passage. And in Job 38:4-7, God says to Job, "Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstones while the morning stars sang together and all the angels shouted for joy?" See, the time when God created the heavens and the earth is when all the morning stars sang together and the angels shouted for joy. And Lucifer? Well, he was the leader of these singers and shouters, the heavenly praise and worship team. That's right. So my theory is this, and with the understanding of a business model and its hierarchy, you have the board of directors, and under them you have the CEO, the president, then you have the senior vice presidents answering to the president, and under them are the vice presidents answering to each of the senior vice presidents, and of course all the people that actually get the work done are assigned to each of these vice presidents. So each of these people, they have people under them that they instruct. So looking at each of these archangels, Michael, Gabriel, and Lucifer, all of the hosts of angels are divided between each of them. And each one was over 1/3 of the hosts of all the angels in heaven. So when Lucifer and his 1/3 of these angels were cast out of heaven, there were no angels to praise and worship God. So I believe that God created mankind for a purpose. Our purpose is to fill that gap, to replace Lucifer and the other angels, to praise and worship God. In Psalms 100, 1 through 4, a very famous scripture, it says, "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that he, the Lord, is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name." In 2 Kings 17:39 it says, "Worship the Lord your God. It is he who will deliver you from the hands of all your enemies." So, no wonder Satan hates us so much. We were created to replace him in heaven. So purpose, it's a noun. Its meaning is the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. Now in the church, oftentimes purpose is confused with calling. See, there's a difference between purpose and calling. Our purpose, the reason we were created, is to praise and worship God. Our calling to preach, teach, sing, play an instrument, prophesy, etc., these are all necessary because of sin, but they're not why we were created. It was around 1100 BC when the Israelites cried out to Samuel for a king. And their reason they gave was that Samuel was getting old and his sons did not walk in their ways. If you took a survey, I would venture to guess that the majority of people would say that Samuel was the first king to rule over Israel. And the majority would be wrong. Listen to what God said to Samuel. He said in 1 Samuel, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king." So before Saul, God was the king over Israel. The Israelites took God out of their government and they put a man in his place. And things only got worse from there. Israel was once a feared nation under the rule of God. Now, I wrote a book. It's called Legend of the Unknown God. It's available on my website. Limited amounts. And in my book, I follow the saga of the Israeli nation, a nation that took God out of their government and fell to foreign nations. They created false gods, built altars to them, and turned their back on God. They didn't like the rules and the commandments, so they created gods that worshipped their chosen lifestyles. Under this way of life, God sent the Assyrians and exiled the northern nations of Israel. The southern nations, Judah, they didn't learn from that mistake. And about 130 years later, God sent the Babylonians to destroy them. God's chosen people, the Israelites, they were given the free will to choose and make decisions. If they had come back to God, He would have blessed them as a nation. If they did not, He would destroy them. We have been given the free will to make decisions based on our circumstances. We can let God use us, or we can walk away from Him. So how do we see history? Will we learn from it? Are we doomed to repeat it? See, the United States has removed God from its schools. The United States has removed God from the government. And people today, they don't like the rules and commandments of God. So they have created gods that worship their lifestyle instead of creating a lifestyle that worships God. They think they're okay. History is repeating itself. Are we going to be like the nations of Judah and ignore it? Will we continue to go down that same path? Jeremiah 5:15 through 19 tells us, I am bringing a distant nation against you, an ancient and enduring nation, a people whose language you do not know, whose speech you do not understand. Their quivers are like an open grave. All of them are mighty warriors. They will devour your harvests and food, devour your sons and daughters. They will devour your flocks and herds, devour your vines and fig trees. With the sword, they will destroy the fortified cities in which you trust. All God requires of us is that we worship Him and give Him praise. From the days of the Old Testament prophets, we have been told, turn back to God and worship Him. When the Israelites turned their backs on God and refused to praise and worship Him, He devastated them by sending in their enemies. Today, the United States has done the same thing. Turned its back on God. And it too is under attack. Today and every day, we need to look to God and give Him our praise and our worship. We need to remember to thank Him for the blessings that He has placed on this nation. We need to ask Him to forgive us for turning our backs on Him. Forgive us for remaining silent. We need to pray for the strength and courage to stand up and let our voices be heard in Washington. We need to create a lifestyle that worships God and not a God that worships our lifestyle. We need to give God a reason to bless this nation again.